All right, I'm going to wait just a few more seconds here, seeing if we have more people for the live. We're going to talk about, first of all, I want to know how you guys pronounce this. I've always said Ouija, but that's the Old English pronunciation. And I know in the US it's Ouija because like squeegee. So not really sure how to pronounce it. But I always said Ouija. So I go with the traditional Old English pronunciation. So I'm just going to say Ouija. If somebody wants to say Ouija, that's fine. I have no issue with it. But I am going to talk about the stigma with these boards because I'm tired of like people like rushing at me every time I mention like a Ouija board. Or a witch board, or like, oh, it's evil, you'll be possessed. First of all, I was raised Roman Catholic, so I know all about the whole exorcist possession thing, and trust me, the Ouija board has nothing to do with it. But it became like part of culture, which is why I posted that stuff earlier. If you missed it, go on my feed and check out some of the stuff that I posted about the history of the Ouija board and, how spiritualists were using it to sort of get through to the other side. And, especially during times of war, they had to keep from losing their minds. So I'm pretty sure that's why that came into being with the Ouija board. But first of all, I'm not going to hell because I own a couple of them. One was given to me, and the other one I've had since forever is a vintage one. And yes, I played with it when I was young, and no, nothing happened. I was not possessed. And no evil came through. This whole thing where like prominent mediums are talking about like Ouija boards and how you're susceptible to allowing evil or the devil to come through. It's like, come on, guys. First of all, you don't need the board to let that happen. If you want evil to happen to you, no, I won't make the comment about the guy that runs our country. All right, so I will not make that comment. But you don't need a board to ignite that into happening. First of all, if you're signed on to a lifetime where you are doing evil acts, or you are committing evil acts, or you are exploring that realm and committing awful crimes and murder and just unspeakable things, usually that happens because of some psychological imbalance when you are introduced into a certain family. There's either an abuse going on or a mental illness. Could have been an accident where there was brain damage, your nervous system was damaged, or you're just born with deficiencies that allowed that to manifest. But I I've watched The Exorcist, like, first of all, it's my favorite horror movie. So I've watched it a million times, and I have never once witnessed the planchette actually moving by itself. I mean, two people have to operate the thing, two or more. And there's a science behind how that thing moves. With the needle and the energy with two people. But it is interesting that a lot of psychic things happen during, playtime with this particular board. Um, I have seen answers, like certain people that are looking for only the answers that they want to look for. Those people are the most susceptible to having something come through that is scaring them. But normally it doesn't come through unless you're thinking that, or your subconscious is projecting, that something evil is coming through that board. It has to come from a human being, from some sort of human construct where that communication, that message is translated through the board, because your subconscious has been sitting on it. And sometimes, I mean, I have a personal story about a Ouija board, but look, I just said Ouija instead of Ouija. So I'll be American for 2 minutes. When I was young and I was playing with a family member, I was, it was my first foray into, like, different divination tools. And I had just gotten the Ouija board, and I was sitting there on the floor in my bedroom with this family member doing this. And it's funny that now I'm dealing with that same family member. I won't say who it is, but there's all kinds of treachery going on, and it's in a legal way. And it's very ironic that the board, we asked who it was, who's coming through, who are we speaking to, and it said it was the devil. The thing is that now I have been immersed in this hell for like 2 years or so with this situation, uh, with this family member who who actually got up immediately and ran out of my bedroom because they were so upset that it said it was the devil. Okay. So, but the ironic thing is that now this evil nonsense is happening right now that I'm immersed in, but I'm fine because I have always felt protected, always. And I've always done things for the right reasons. And this other person has not. So that's what's going on. I'm not going to say what it is, but there. I just think it's funny that the subconscious was projecting that it was the devil, and I've actually used that term about this family member and their treacherous doings. I've actually said that many years later. So I agree with some of that article that I posted on my page. A lot of times the subconscious can suppress these these things that you don't want to deal with, these things you don't want to look at, you know. Of course, I was beginning to be this warrior in the paranormal, so I of course I wanted to keep going. I was upset this person ran out of the room. I'm like, "Oh my god, let's see what else they have to say." Cuz I wa- I was excited that we were getting answers. And, I have no fear of these things. I knew early on in my life I had no fear of this stuff. It doesn't mean I don't protect myself. Of course I do. But I I go in with, with my sword raised, and I'm fighting the good fight. That's who I am. So I never once got scared working with these tools. Is the Ouija. I want to know your pronunciation of that word. Who says, okay, just put your hand up out of the people that are here. Who who says Ouija? Does anybody say Ouija when they're referring to that board? Or do they call it Ouija? Like, what do you call that board? Like, what's your pronunciation of that board? So if you come on and talk with me here, let me know. Um, I just think that there has been so much religious imprinting on that particular. It's it's a game. Yes, some people think it's dangerous, but so is anything else that you could be doing. Anything can be dangerous if you look at it the right way. Leaving two teenagers in a room to and you leave them alone long enough, I mean, that could be dangerous. I don't understand why this board got such a bad rap. I know The Exorcist happened, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay. And then the thing is that people were buying it even more then. Like, people were running out to buy one instead of the other way around. So, I think people have to understand that Hollywood and movies and these scripts are written in such a way that, you know, everything is amplified. Okay. I mean, I say this being raised Catholic. I was my church organist for 10 years for the priest. And I was taught by nuns for the earlier part of my life. So I was around that environment all the time. And this isn't, any disparagement to those that are still going to mass every Sunday, but I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of that organized situation, because my understanding of belief systems and religion is much more, of a broad spectrum encompassing thing, where it's everyone. Not any one religion is the right religion. It's however you see it through that prism. It's your environment that you've grown up in, whatever country you're from, whatever it is. But basically, just do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, let's just boil it down. All the rest of this is politics, so they could control the masses. So, this thing where this board became this, oh, it's the conduit to, to hell. And all of a sudden, whoever plays with it is going to be possessed like Reagan was in the movie. First of all, I sat there wanting to know more. Like, I'm like, okay, who's calling themselves the devil? And I was just more amused by it than anything else. And I had to get down to the bottom of whatever that was. So, of course, that didn't happen on that particular session, because that family member ran out of the room screaming and never played with me again. Well, that's fine. But now I know why it all of a sudden called itself the devil, because there were some evil things brewing that many years later I'm in the midst of right now. So, yes, sometimes the subconscious will hold prophetic messages from the future. It doesn't matter what divination tool that you use, whether it's tarot cards or, crystals, or, if you use a pendulum, to do a yes no thing, or, if you do meditation, a lot of times people will do scrying, with a mirror. It depends. Again, it also depends on the part of the world that you were raised in. Some people, and I've pretty much been witness to. I don't think there's one divination tool that I haven't been witness to. I mean, I've been around some from North Africa that were throwing bones. They actually threw bones on a cloth, on a blessed cloth, and they were able to read from that. It was fascinating. Fascinating. I love learning other cultures and how they do this. Um, I used to see a woman from Romania that would read coffee grounds. There are those that read tea leaves, same idea. And basically, there's nothing in the grounds or the tea leaves. It's their innate ability, and they're able to interpret certain symbols that come through as they look at the grounds in the bottom. I have always been held a fascination for this. I have always just been in awe. I just sit there and I learn everything that I can. The old Italian woman I used to go to when I was younger, who inspired me to be a psychic, who actually told me I was going to be a famous psychic. When I had no intention of doing so. She read regular playing cards. And it's funny, I started with those and then I switched to tarot cards because I thought, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And then I said, why am I doing that? I'm going back to what I learned on. And I went back to regular playing cards, which is what I've been doing for the last decade. And that's my go-to. Why? Because tarot cards they're distracting. The artwork is beautiful, but it distracts me, and it distracts me from the image I'm seeing in my head and from the messages that I receive in a clairaudient kind of way, where I hear words that I know aren't mine. And so I get distracted easily. I have moon in Gemini, so I tend to get distracted very easily. So I had to pick something where I wouldn't be distracted, but I would be engaged enough where I wouldn't get tired. And that's why I stayed with it. And I have my blue crystal, my crystal that I got. I actually received. It's good if you get the crystals from someone else. If someone gifts those to you instead of buying one yourself, or if you're mining for crystals, or if you find one that calls to you. Um, but this one was given to me by a friend who I used to do psychic work with, early on before I knew I was going to do this. And we would meet once a week, and we would, I mean, this would go on for like 5 hours. It was kind of like a little workshop that we had going with ourselves. And we would tap into the universe, and we would use the crystals. And she actually got it from me in Sedona. And it's on my media. Like, if you look through the pictures, you see the crystal that I have here on the table. And I've had it for a long time, and she gifted it to me. And she was in Sedona visiting, and she found it, and it's like this perfect color for me. It's this light blue, sea blue, like it's so clear. um and I love it. Anyway, I'm not going to ever get another one because I have this one. I will never get another one. Um, but I want to know what your, okay, I'm still going to call it Ouija board, not Ouija, because that sounds like squeegee to me. I just have a problem saying Ouija board. Like it just sounds silly when you say Ouija, but that's the US pronunciation. If you guys have a story about a Ouija board and or a witch board, whatever, whatever name you want to call it. If you have a story about it, just put your hand up and send me a request to speak, and I'll put you on. If you have a story or a question about an experience you had with playing with one, or why you're so afraid about these boards, like what is causing the fear, you know? Um, I never thought once, except, it was funny because the very first, that same Ouija board that I'm talking about with that family member, my mother actually broke it in half after she read The Exorcist and she threw it in the fireplace. She burned it. She thought I was going to be possessed. I mean, that tells you how much I fought to be where I am today and who I am today, because I just bought another one. Um, I just, I didn't see the problem. But she was so convinced that I was going to be Reagan, and I was going, my head was going to spin around 360 degrees, and I was just going to be possessed and have all this stuff happen to me. This is the household I grew up in. Um, but yeah, she broke it in half on her knee and she threw it in the fireplace. Do you want to know how? Okay, have you ever smelled a Ouija board if it's burning? Oh my God, she almost like burned our whole house down. But she burned it in the fireplace, and I watched it burn, and I'm like, oh my God, these people are lunatics. And I just couldn't wait to explore more. So that tells you I was meant to do this and I was meant to have this calling, not to engage in evil or whatever. I wanted to study all the different divination tools from all different parts of the world. Like I said, some of the best conversations I've ever had are from people from other countries who use different techniques with pendulums, or they do scrying, or they do location work, or they throw the I Ching. I've actually worked one time with somebody who is very proficient at I Ching and through the coins. And it's not just understanding the concepts so that you can interpret what you're seeing. It's you have to gravitate towards whatever it is you choose to use. If it's tarot cards, you know all about all kinds of tarot cards. You know about all the ins and outs of each card. You know the history. You know the artwork. You know which decks that you are in love with and that you want to work with all the time, that have your energy. You have a certain routine with it. Some people like to tap the deck before they draw the cards. I don't get that fancy with my regular playing cards. I have a white ghost deck. It's called a ghost deck, but um, probably why I bought it. But it's just regular playing cards, but it's what I learned on. So I felt comfortable. It's my very first psychic I ever went to when I was like a child used regular playing cards on her kitchen table while she had sauce going on the stove. I mean, it was, she was Italian. She had holy water and religious relics. She was very Catholic, and she had like statues of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in her house. I mean, it was all very, very religious and very protective. But, you know, people from the tri-state area would drive up, and I mean, there were cars lined up for hours outside her house. And I remember the day where she was reading, and I used to study the way she would read, right? I used to I used to look at why she threw the regular playing cards in a certain order. Like I do everything random. She had organization to hers though. But I knew before she even started talking what she was going to say because I could tell by the juxtaposition of those particular cards that that's what that meant. Sure enough, that's what she said. So I like I knew instantly what the answer was when she pulled the cards. I was like, "Oh wow, I actually got that right." So then when she told me I was in my late teen years and she told me that I was going to be, well known all over the world. And I said, "Oh, good, I'm going to be a singer like I wanted to be." And I was studying to be. And I was in a recording studio like a lot. I was working at one and I was in a recording studio constantly and I played piano bar and I did that whole thing. So she said, "No." She said, "You're going to do what I do and everyone will know who you are." And I had such a fight with her that I felt bad because she died like a year later, but she told me she was going to die. She said, "Look, I'm not going to be here the next time you want to come." And she had cancer. So um, I remember like sitting there and I got mad at her. I said, "What do you mean I'm not going to be a famous singer? What do you mean?" And, I mean, I spent a lot of time practicing like 5 hours a day, in the rehearsal halls. And I was just constantly doing my craft. And she said, "No, you're going to do this." And I I got mad at her and then I was like, "Well, I love doing this, but this is like a hobby, you know? I actually love it a lot. That's why I'm here all the time." And I would come to see her when I went home. Um, but she said, "No." She said, "You will come to find that this is your calling." And she, when she told me she wasn't going to be around, I mean, I started crying. I was like, I was like, I didn't take that very well. And she said, "Look, I'm passing the torch to you, and you will be amazed at how you take to this." And I was like in a daze when I walked out of her kitchen. I was just like, I didn't understand, because I mean, my father dropped quite a bit of money on my college education, so he wasn't too happy to hear that I was going to be a famous psychic. Um, but it so that went by, and then I moved out here, and I was doing this part time, and then so many people were wanting readings. I mean, even when I was in college, I remember like I was off campus actually. I wasn't even on the campus. I lived off campus in an apartment. And they were lining up on Saturday night. I mean, of course they were drinking, but or whatever. But they were lining up around and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, "Guys, look, I need to go to sleep." And they said, "Oh, please, just one more, just one more." I said, "How did you even hear that I do this? My friend told me that you were so accurate." And, it was just, it started then. So I think back then it was like, I, I think it was like $10 a reading or something like that. It was college, so I didn't care. I didn't even know what I was doing, but people found out, and by word of mouth, every Saturday night I had like 30, 40 people outside my apartment. And finally I just said, well, I guess I should look into this. But I still didn't make the decision until I came out here to California. Um, and it is the best decision I ever made in my life. One of them. I do not regret a thing. I love that I chose this. And I love that I chose this by finding it. Um, it wasn't something that I just fell into. It was, I had to embrace what I loved. And I did love doing it every day. And I had to make a decision. And the universe rewarded me like within that year. I mean, I had so many clients that I had to turn people away. There weren't enough hours in the day, you know. So that's how it all started with that. But it was regular playing cards because that's what I was comfortable with. That's what I was exposed to when I used to go see this woman who read cards and told me I was going to be famous doing this. And I said, okay. But the whole Ouija board thing, I mean, the smell of a burning Ouija board in our fireplace. I mean, that's a smell you don't forget. Like all your life, I couldn't believe, first of all, there was so much smoke that it it almost, the fire almost did a backdraft, and we almost burned the house down, or she did. So, when I was crying, it was all emotional. I was like, "Why are you burning all my stuff?" Oh, and she took my tarot cards and everything else and threw them in the fire too, cuz I was going to be possessed by the devil. First of all, you know what? The devil needs to stand in front of me and I'll face off with the devil. I have no problem with that because that's how strong I am, that I am on the right side of things. Am I perfect? No. Do I make mistakes? Yes. But I am still doing this for the right reasons. And I still try to help people wherever I can. And yeah, I have to make a living. So just like anybody else, if you spend this many hours a day doing this, I have to pay my rent. I didn't get married, so it's me. I have to pay my rent. But other than that, it's a joy waking up every day doing this. And I just think it's ironic that when I was playing with that Ouija board, that first one that, you know, that family member ran out of my bedroom screaming. Um, and now all kinds of evil things are happening with that same person. So I find that very ironic, but that's how the universe is. I'm just in awe of messages from the universe, like when they come and how they come, the method by which they're delivered. And just like some of the dreams I've had where I get glimpses of the future ahead. I have no idea what they mean. And when the stuff finally unravels and it's happening, I have an understanding of it on the other side. So I'm just, I'm one of these people that actually appreciates the art of what I do. Um, so, all right, I need to know who here is still scared of Ouija boards. I need to know why. Michelle, do you want to tell me why you're so scared? Do you want to request? Tell your story? Michelle? She's so scared she's not even talking. All right, hold on. Here she is. Okay. I thought you were so scared. You weren't going to. Oh my God. All right.
Hold on.
So
Okay.
you need to tell me why you're so scared of Ouija boards. And how do you say it?
Because
Do you say
I
Ouija?
say yes, Ouija. That's how I
Yeah,
learned how to say it.
you know, that's what most Americans say. And for some reason, I swear to God, I have, even when I'm spelling certain things, I spell things in Old English by accident. Like I just do it and I have to catch myself. I'll use like old, like the word old, OLDE. I'll use like an old English vintage spelling of old, and it looks right to me. And sometimes I have to
It-
catch myself because, which tells me I most likely had a lifetime in London or nearby. So,
That's what I was going to say. Your past lives.
but I did. I was like I would like spell things in old English and think it looks right. And like I see other words like favorite where it has a U in it, FAVOURITE. And that's also like an old English spelling. So it's weird
Hmm.
that I gravitate to it. Like the old English is just more, it's beautiful, you know? So
Yeah.
okay, Ouija. So tell me, Ouija, why you're so scared of it and what happened?
Um, I watch a lot of paranormal shows, and it's every time they use one of those Ouija boards, it doesn't turn out good, and my imagination just runs wild, and I'm like, not touching it with a 10-foot pole.
Okay. First of all, I worked on these reality shows and I'm pretty much started the thing off with MTV Sphere. So let's just, I started off with the original, with the OG
Hmm.
version. Okay. So most of that crap you see on these shows is just that. It is total production value.
Mm,
It's special effects, it's people making stuff up. I mean, I was on one with somebody else. I won't say which show. It was on somebody else's
hmm.
show, and I was a guest psychic on the show. And they actually faked having it, I thought they were having like a stroke or something because they
Oh my
all
God.
and convulsions and the whole thing. And I went to touch his shoulder and he actually pushed me away and he said he broke, whatever spell he was under, and he said don't. And I knew right then he was faking the whole thing. and
Oh my Lord.
and of course I never did his show again, but um I mean that stuff happens and it was a pretty well-known series. So
Wow.
I watch people fake stuff left and right. I I have been asked to fake certain things or embellish certain things, and I have been in many fights with many a producer saying, "Uh-uh, I don't do that." You know,
Right.
I see what I see. I'll say it a different way so it doesn't upset anybody, but I have to I'm going to be true to what I see or otherwise what's the point of me being here?
Hmm.
So you can have a pretty girl on camera. I mean, I had no interest in that. So I mean, a lot of fakery is out there on TV with these things, guys.
I'm sure of that. Yeah. I kind of like the tarot cards. They just fascinate me. But I'm also a chicken with that too, and I don't really know how to interpret them.
Well, first of all, you're letting a TV show scare you, which is the point of the TV show because you get to react to it. But it's it's what they want. They're controlling your reaction.
Hmm.
So with tarot cards. I mean, they're beautiful. Some of them, actually, tarot cards were derived from regular playing cards.
Yeah, they are. They look beautiful. Hmm.
No, I mean, that's how they originated.
Hmm.
Regular playing cards started in China.
Wow.
The Chinese actually created playing cards, and tarot cards were like an offshoot of that, and then they became very beautiful and ornate, and artists were doing their different renditions of each card. But that's where it originated from. So that's another reason I like using regular playing cards, because it was the original.
Hmm.
I tend to want to go back to original things, you know, the basic,
Mm.
original, pure, whatever it is. But I want to know why you all of a sudden just believe somebody that was on TV telling you that a Ouija board, or Ouija, as you say, Ouija board I'm going to make fun of everybody that says Ouija. All right. So I just want to know why you thought that in and of itself was bringing evil, or possibly could open you up to possession.
Well, I don't know about evil or possession. It's just that I'm the biggest scaredy cat in the world, and I don't want anything coming into my house or following me anywhere.
You
So,
have had how many,
I,
first of all, you had how many readings with me? If you were all that scared, you wouldn't have readings. You wouldn't order it.
that's a little more safer.
I mean, kind of the
You're
same.
doing the work. I'm just sitting there.
I know, but the people on TV are doing the work, and you're just sitting there watching them.
Yeah, but they're on TV. I'm safe.
I know, but why does it scare you? It scares you enough to not want to be in a room with a Ouija board.
It's just it's for me. I guess as I got older, it's scary to me. I think that the tarot cards are a little safer. They're pretty to look at, and you're not inviting anything in.
Well, I don't care what it is that you use. I don't care what it is. What kind of objects, whatever it is that you want to use to divine certain answers for yourself, whether it's just taking a pen and clicking it on a desk, whatever
Hmm.
it is, um, you can. The only evil that's going to come is from your subconscious, because you aren't facing something,
Mm.
and the subconscious, it will unleash something in your subconscious that you needed to take care of, most likely for a long time.
Wow.
So what is it that you needed to take care of, that you were doing this transference from the stupid Ouija board instead of dealing with, you know?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, I think it's fascinating that you can unlock the subconscious, because thoughts are in the universe, and
Hmm.
that's why you need two people for the actual planchette to move, um, and the thought transference, and the energy field that's created by the thoughts coming in, and then it's transcribed on the board in a message.
Hmm.
I think that's very telling. And
It's fascinating to watch, but I don't want to be part of it.
but I want to know why it scares you so much.
Well, like it's
What do
just
you
like
think's
I
going to
guess
happen? What do you think's going to happen?
I think it's just the fear of the unknown. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I grew up. I'm Spanish, and in my family and in the Spanish culture, they had the
Day of the
santeria,
dead?
the yeah, the seances and stuff. And I was a kid when those things were going on. That was just
That,
normal,
what a
you
great
know.
childhood. That's so great.
Yeah, it scared the
I,
crap out of me.
oh my God, I would have loved it.
Oh yeah, it was very. I mean, it was interesting but scary at the same time.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that stayed with me as I got older, and maybe I put it away somewhere. And it's kind of fascinating watching all the different paranormal shows and movies, and it's exciting and like taboo at the same time, I guess. I don't know. That's
I'm
the only
not
way I can
saying
describe it.
I'm not saying that they all fake it, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of fakery that goes on in the paranormal television world. Let's just say that. And
Yeah,
I
I guess they want to develop an audience.
know I have met and worked with pretty much all of the big ones. So,
Hmm.
I there's a lot of fakery that goes on, and the thing is that I understand production value from a producer,
Hmm.
and I understand
Right.
it, and I can shape what I'm saying to fit their narrative, but
Hmm.
it still has to be my content. It still has to be what I see.
Right. It has to be true to
Not
you.
just
Yeah, of
stuff
course.
up for production value. I'm just not going to do it. Um, but you know, it's it happens a lot more than the authentic stuff.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people don't know. When I was having the temperature around me was 10 degrees cooler, and they could actually verify that by taking measurements of the ambient temperature around me. That's where they learned, oh, let's put all the sensors around Carla, because all the meters are going to go off, and
Right.
that's fine because that happened all my life. you
Right.
know like I would have, like, I can't wear watches because of that problem.
Wow.
um
That's crazy.
I had problems with electronic things, like batteries being drained like instantly.
Hmm.
um but they actually would film that, and it became interesting to see it from my end. But as far as most of the stuff that you're seeing on reality paranormal TV, uh,
Hmm.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because the unknown and the afterlife, it's out there. I took a picture of it. You see my picture I took at Alcatraz. So that was not altered in any way.
Hmm.
And it was proof positive the afterlife exists and spirit presence exists.
Right.
So, and I've seen other pictures from other people, but I've never seen one that was almost solid like mine was.
Wow.
So I became a champion of that whole thing. If it's real, it's really real. Um,
Hmm.
but it doesn't happen on cue. And that's the problem with production, is like they need it to happen within, like, hey, we only have so many hours of daylight left, Carla. you know, like, we're losing the light. We need to go. Like, I mean, that stuff would happen, and you can't force it into happening. In fact, when I snapped that photo at Alcatraz, I wasn't even looking to take a photo of anything. I was just walking around Alcatraz because it was freezing. It was mid-July, and it was freezing. Or no, it
Wow.
was March. It was actually Easter Sunday. When I took that picture, it was March.
Wow.
Um, and I just remembered it being so cold. I had to walk around just to get. I did another episode for another show mid-July there, and it was just as cold. Like, no time of year at Alcatraz is actually warm and inviting. Let me just say that. But I noticed that it was because I was relaxed and just walking around. I must have snapped 100 photos in the cells. Most of them were empty, no furniture, just empty, just dark. There were no lights. It was just dark, and I had a utility flashlight with me, and I would shine that in the thing. It was empty, and I would take a picture. I had no idea I captured anything until I was on my way back to the hotel on the ferry, and I almost dropped my phone when it came through, and I'm like, oh my god, what the hell is this? And that's when I took it. It was when I wasn't expecting to take it, and that's when most of that the real stuff happens. When you're not looking for it, you're not forcing it. It's just you're at the right time, the right place, and the right moment to accept it. And there it was. So again, I'm not sitting here saying that nobody can have a bad experience with a Ouija, I'll say Ouija, all right, Ouija board. But if you go in thinking it's going to be evil, it will be. If you go in with just this marked interest of your this fascination, like, oh, let's just see what comes through. It's very interesting what it unlocks, and some of the work, like stuff you don't expect, because you don't know what it's going to spell out. So those are my experiences with it, because I go in not thinking, not putting the bad mojo on the thing before I go in. I go in and I allow whatever's going to come through to come through. I'm always protected. I already know that. I'm protected every day, and I'm very fortunate. And, you know, like if evil wants to come through, then I'm ready for it, you know? But most people are just, they buy into so much of what's on TV and movies. And I have worked on so many productions that I have to tell you, you have to be careful not to get pulled into that whole world of make believe, like every single thing that they're filming is real. I mean, when I was speaking at Penn State for their paranormal thing, and um, Lorraine Warren was the one that took my place when I was finished. When I had to film, actually, I was filming another series, and she took my place. And then The Conjuring and all that happened. So, stuff happens. But it depends on your attitude going in. And that's with anything in life. I don't care what it is, whether it's paranormal or your work or a family thing or an event or something. If you have the wrong attitude going in, that's what you're going to get when you come out. So maybe think of it like that.
Yeah, I do look at it as just entertainment. I like to get scared, but I want to be in my house and watching it, not getting scared in my house. That's all it is. It's just
Okay, so I guess we're not inviting you to the next seance.
no, thank you.
But
But
anyway,
I appreciate it.
hopefully some of the stuff that I've described. Read the article. I put the link to the entire article. I posted screenshots from the article, but
Yes, I was reading it. It was very
read the whole
fascinating.
article.
Hmm.
It's actually
Hmm.
Smithsonian that put the article out, and it's very very interesting how
It really was. I read it all. Yeah.
the Ouija board actually came into existence, and
Hmm.
and why it was called that. Because you know I thought it was interesting that the name itself wasn't what we think it is, like with
Hmm.
E being yes in French, and ja being yes in German. It wasn't that
Right.
at all.
Hmm.
It was a medium that had gleaned the name from a session with the Ouija board.
Right.
And it turned out that she liked a writer that had a name that was misspelled I think it was Ouija or something like that.
Right. Hmm.
And you know, it they misspelled it when they were doing a news article. You know.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It was interesting.
Yeah, and I found the historical references like with spiritualism and you know, like table rapping and
Right.
a lot of the earlier references to spiritualism and how that came about. Um, and what was going on at the time and World War I and II and and just how the board came about to help people, you know, that they were able to, like, I guess, they said something about they were able to get messages across, with sending messages overseas. And how come they couldn't get the same messages to those that have crossed over into the afterlife? So I just thought it was very interesting. But this whole thing where it was connected to evil, the second that Reagan started playing with it in the basement, no, 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 you know, but it did scare all of us, didn't it? When we saw The Exorcist, oh my God,
Oh, yes, it did.
we got scared. And, that's still, to this day, I still get scared watching it. It was just so
Especially when she's possessed. That's creepy. Oh,
well, it was so well done. It was just
yes,
so, um, the way they cut the film and the various scenes together, it was just so well done.
it was very good. Hmm.
It to this day, I still have to turn on all the lights after I watch it. You know,
It's
um,
creepy. It's a creepy movie.
yeah, I mean, I even still get scared, just because, um, even though I know like what's true, I can still get scared by being startled. You know,
Right.
that's why I tell certain spirits that have crossed not to scare me in here
Hmm.
because like I'm so sensitive to things that I'll jump and hurt myself probably. you
Oh,
know, I
Jesus.
I so I actually instruct them. Look, if you want to get a message to me, that's fine. But do not just appear in the middle of like I can't,
Yeah,
you know.
it's startling. Hmm.
I'll hear your message. I will translate your message. I will make sure the appropriate parties get that message. But do not come in here and disrupt my life with, and scare the hell out of me. I can't.
Well,
Uh,
that's me. I don't want to see anything. Mm-mm.
but okay, thanks for telling me like why it's you. I was just curious. Anybody else have?
Thanks, Carla.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a story, a Ouija board story that they want to tell, or any other like scary thing that might have happened with? Usually, it's the Ouija board. Like I don't see other people saying. Sometimes with candle work, like I've seen people uh, doing candle work, and the candle does something like the flame goes like way high all of a sudden, or the candle blows out by itself and there's no breeze. Um, or there's other instances where something physical happens that there is no explanation for. Um, I've actually been up close and personal to a couple of those, and like I would, I think I told the story before, but I used to sit in the cemetery by my house. Okay, so yeah, this is what I did when I was a child. But I was a teenager. I just come home from college, and I was reading a letter somebody like wrote or something, and I remember just crying. And I had no personal space at my house because they were burning Ouija boards and stuff at my house, so I had, I had to, I had to drive, and It was just down the hill, and I went to the cemetery, and it was up on a hill, this cemetery by our house, and I was mainly going there because it was quiet. But I went there at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and a huge electrical storm broke out, a summer storm, and it was huge. It came out of nowhere, and uh, there were many bolts of lightning, and I didn't even pay attention because I'm reading this letter, and all of a sudden I get to almost the end of the letter, and 100-year-old tree was cut in half by a bolt of lightning and fell within an inch of the front of my car in the cemetery. And it was dark outside by this time because it was raining so hard. I had to back out of the cemetery because it was blocking the path. This tree like fell right in front of my car. And first of all, I almost had a heart attack. And then I'm backing out, and I have to make sure I'm not hitting any headstones on the way down the hill. And trying to back out of a cemetery with a very narrow road and not hit any headstones. That was a horror movie in itself. So I'm backing out because it sort of would wind around, and it wasn't straight. And it took me about half an hour to get out of there. But stuff like that happens. Like I have probably half a dozen stories where that type of stuff has happened, where it just comes out of nowhere. Um, and I have to just take a breath and just keep going, that I was protected. If that tree had fallen a couple inches the other, towards the windshield, I could have been dead. So I always look at that stuff, and it's always my angels taking care of me. They got their angel wings around me. I always know I'm protected. So I'm not fearless to the point of being stupid, but I am protected, and I know this, and I will always be cognizant of that fact for the rest of my life. So anybody else have a question about, before we wrap this thing up, question about, like, if you missed my post, go to my feed on Twitter here, on X, and just read the screenshots, and then there's a link to an article, and that will sort of explain the whole history. It's a very fascinating article about Ouija boards and how they started, where they came from, the stigma around them. And I just wanted to tell a couple stories about the fact that, you know, it's more about unlocking the subconscious, the stuff you've been suppressing, the stuff you don't want to talk about, the stuff you don't want to face. That's usually what comes out. All your fears. So if you missed reading that, it's on my page right now. And I will wrap it up if nobody has any other questions about this. But I just thought it's Halloween time and we needed to talk about Ouija boards. All right. My God, Halloween. How many weeks away are we? We're like 3 weeks away. 3 weeks. Okay, so Halloween night, of course, we will be here telling ghost stories. That I can tell you. Um, and I'll figure out the topics for the next couple of weeks. I usually have a dream about it, and I wake up and I know what the topic is going to be. That's how these happen. Unless you guys have a pressing topic that you want me to cover, then post it and let's see how that flies. Okay? As always, I love it when you guys show up for the live because it's hard just talking all by myself, even though apparently I always have words. So I'm very wordy and I'm very talky. I have Moon in Gemini, so I could probably talk for hours and just, you need to stop me. Um, and we're going to talk next time. We're going to have another Halloween themed, unless some event with our country or some other tragedy happens where we need to do a topic based on that. We're going to have another Halloween theme for next week. I'll figure it out. I'll be inspired. I'll have a dream. It'll happen. All right, you guys. Thanks for joining me again. We'll talk next time. Have a good evening. Sleep well. Try not to let the Ouija board give you nightmares, Michelle. All right. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Good night. Bye.